working in the town and living in the town, and it's been a great experience. So but we're here tonight to talk about traffic in the downtown area. I actually rent an apartment at Union and Williams, so I'm somewhat familiar. I travel these roads all the
You
time.
still have both your mirrors.
Just to introduce a couple of staff members here. Bill Roth is Director of Planning and Development for the town, and Deputy Chief Todd Carrera from the Fire Department is here. And I believe Chief Myers is going to be joining us. He's out of the meeting upstairs. But again, thank you all very much for coming. I'd just like to say a couple of introductory remarks before I turn it over to Bill. And that is that there are no decisions that have been made on this at all as of yet. There will be no decisions made tonight. The purpose of this meeting is to get input from you, to get hear about your concerns, your issues that you're dealing with in terms of traffic in your neighborhood. I think we can all agree that there are problems associated with it in terms of sight lines, in terms of close encounters of vehicles. The police department has documented a number of accidents that have occurred in these two streets. So what we just want to talk about is one possible of many solutions that may or may not address the concerns, but unless we start talking about it and get ideas from the residents, so we can start thinking about this, we're just going to continue on with a very difficult situation and that's impacting our safety as well as the property damage that occurs. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bill. We'll have a couple of comments. Again, we're seeking your input, so please don't hesitate to ask questions, but let's have Bill give a brief presentation first.
Thank you. What we've looked at doing is we've talked with public safety, we've talked with our regional planning agency. Some of the impetus in starting this was a lot of issues regarding side swipes, accidents. There's limited sight distance on numerous streets. If you can see on this, every single street, if you are heading west and trying to turn south onto Main Street, it has an obstructed view from every single one, starting at Bridge, Spring, Washington Center, and Union, if you're trying to. And Washington Street is actually probably the worst. The police chief will have the numbers, but I believe the Main Street section over the last 3 years, there's 50 reported accidents, and on the Middle Street, there's about 20 reported accidents. Please go ahead and sit. So we talked with our regional planning agency and about a series of different things and what we could do. As Mark said, nothing's written in stone. That's why we have these little markers. I've got extra ones, and we're gonna look at any and all options. One of the options that has been discussed is to look at turning from Route 6 along Main Street to Bridge Street. You keep it two-way, and then from Main Street all the way north, all the way south, you keep it one-way to Ferry Street. And then from Ferry Street on Middle Street through more of the neighborhood, you create a one-way to Washington. Middle Street from Huddleston to Washington Street stays the same. Nothing actually changes. That's a two-way because there's a lot of trucks, traffic to get into the shipyard and around. One of the other options that we've been looking at and discussing is that from Washington Street all the way north, keeping that an existing two-way. There's some emergency response issues, so we're also looking at that because that's one of the main ways for the fire department to get up, and they have to look at response times. And if there's no alternatives, then we would look at maintaining that. And then one of the alternatives with that would be essentially Main Street, looking at it as a one-way from Washington to Ferry, and Middle from one-way back this way to Washington, and leaving these two sections the same up. These are some of the options that we're looking at. Some of the issues are side swipes, particularly on Main Street, and it's really bad from Washington Street all the way south. if everyone drives there, it's a one-way road. There's parking on one side, and the width of that road is not sufficient.
4 times I got swiped.
There's not sufficient space for two-way traffic.
Plus,
So,
guys coming the other way, they don't slow down, they don't stop, they just go up on the sidewalk.
so these are some of the options that we've been throwing out and looking at. And then nothing changes on Water Street is still a one-way. So these are some of the options we've been looking at.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Regarding heading south on Main, parking right now, there is plenty of parking on the street because not everyone has off-street parking, especially in front of my building. There's a whole stretch where a lot of the tenants need to park. Now, if we're heading one way south, will the cars will continue to have parking there?
Correct.
There will be no change in like putting them across the street?
No, correct. You can't park on this side because that's the fire hydrant
That's what
side.
I thought.
So the parking under either scenario, parking on Main Street would still stay on the west side, and parking on Middle would also stay on the west side. So, the on-street parking would not change. You would keep it in the same area.
So you'd be parking on Middle Street facing on the west side?
If you live between Washington Street and Ferry Street, under what we're discussing, the way you park now, your car is on the
West side.
on the west side, and it's facing south. It would still be on the west side, but it would then be facing north. Because it's
When you go to pull out, the traffic's gonna be on your passenger side.
correct, and that
And can I ask why we're stopping at Ferry and not going all the way to the end? Cause then you're gonna have two-way, one-way, two-way.
What do you mean on Ferry?
Ferry Street ends at Margaret's. The Main
Correct.
Street continues on for another block. So is that gonna be two-way?
Yeah, that would still be two-way and allow for 4th Street people to come this way and then come south to get to Green Street. So,
Why don't you just make it one-way on Main all the way to the end? You're gonna make two-way, one-way, two-way.
well, they figure, it's felt from the traffic folks that the logical place to stop is right before the larger street itself. So, and mind you, these are just things, so we can take that into account. We can look at those options to continue that one way further. Yes, sir.
Is there any way you can reverse the method of stopping, stop signs? Instead of being on the side streets, put them on Main Street?
Yeah.
So that every couple of blocks, a guy has to stop, and it limits them from going 60 miles an hour down the street.
Yeah.
It does become a drag strip on a regular basis.
And when it's one way, there'd be nothing to stop.
There'll be nothing. You're right.
So, we can look at that. There are certain speed bumps are on main arterials and stuff are not. I don't think the town really would. I don't think the town really wants to entertain speed bumps.
It's just a matter of time before somebody, some kid,
Yeah.
some animal gets run over if they haven't been already.
We can look at that. We can look at doing some stop signs every so often, reversing them.
Cheryl has a problem walking, and she can't always get across the street as fast as the cars are coming.
Yeah. And what section of the street are you?
Right on Main by Union.
Main and Union. Okay. All right. Which is probably the narrowest portion. Yes.
It might also help to speed limits.
Hmm?
There's no speed limit close to, on Middle Street. I don't know about Main Street.
Well, it's not posted. Probably be 15.
Well, to do a posted speed limit, there would be a transportation study necessary, and it's, that could be we could look at posted speed limits.
It's 25 and it's wider.
Or just put the police speed sign up there and tell the people how quick they're going.
It seems to me like a lot of people are getting sideswiped and smashing into each other because they're going just way too fast. And it seems to me if it's not posted, it
On which street?
Block the sun. They're so
Yeah.
big and so high.
On which street
It
predominantly?
doesn't matter,
Either
Middle
one?
Street or Middle Street or Main Street, but particularly Middle Street. And when you get those big boats coming out of the landing and you get the trucks coming down, I mean, the neighbor, cause my son actually lives there, I'm the grandmother, I live on Washington Street, which can be just as bad. But at least on Washington Street, there's a stop sign, every 3 blocks, there's a stop sign. And I've counted on Main Street and Mill Street, and that's not the case. And I don't know what the speed limit is, but they go 50 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah, they've been doing
So I
53 in
think,
front of that place.
I really think the number one issue is speed.
Yeah.
Just put some stop signs over there.
The stop signs could be done without any diddling around with traffic right now. You could do them tomorrow.
Just reverse it.
Well, there's a little bit of a process. You do.
I'm exaggerating, but you
Well, I
got
think
the
in
point.
Fairhaven, we should just stick them up.
I have to say though, where I am, the bottleneck, all those cars are lined up, there's 7, 8 cars on the street that are parked. They're the ones getting sideswiped, and people are leaving the scene, so they're stuck with the bill.
Yeah.
Your
Now,
fingers are half.
What I
what's actually
noticed,
happening.
what Ken and I noticed is, you got an oncoming car heading from Route 6 south, and then you got somebody coming up the street. There's like a rush to get through that bottleneck, because they don't want to have anybody to wait, so it's this urgency to get through it. In the meantime, you got somebody driving up on the sidewalk or scraping his his tires along the beautiful sidewalks that we have on our street. So that I think is one of the issues, that people are just conscious of the fact that it is so tight and they wanna get through it. I don't think it's always a question of, I'm gonna go down the street 50 miles an hour. And
Well,
I don't
there's
feel
two
it's my
things
life.
that I've seen, talking about the speed. Speed along this portion is definitely up from Huddleston to Washington, around that.
And also,
I see a lot of speed because, and on both sides, because the middle's so wide, but this is a little bit wider on this section. The section from essentially, it's really bad from Center to South Street, or Center to Ferry, is that when you have parking on the one side, the road is not wide enough for two-way traffic. I know that I was part of rebuilding that, and everyone swears I narrowed it, but we never narrowed it. The only thing that we did that affected the affected the road was we put in, a lot of places didn't have curbs. They were 1 inch, 2 inch, and basically everyone used the sidewalk as on-street parking. And once you put a 6-inch curb in there, they got to park on the street, which, so.
If I could just interrupt, we had 2 other town officials who joined us, Selectman Bob Espinola, and Chief Myers.
Yeah.
Just wanted to do
So,
Thank you.
but Chief, I kind of told him that, I mentioned that if you wanted to talk about the crash reports, I think I summarized them from our meeting. I wasn't sure if I was correct or not.
Just going over I ran to our system the amount of crashes, because I know that was one of the concerns that was brought up. Main Street, since January of 2015, almost 2 years now, there's been 51 crashes on Main Street.
Reported crash.
Reported, correct. A lot of things aren't reported.
I was hit 4 times, nobody bothered to stop and say sorry.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll just give you the actual data. 31 of them were south of Washington, the other 20 were north of Washington. Middle had considerably less, there was only 7 between Ferry and Washington, on Main Street, which I think most of us know Main Street seems to be the biggest issue. But that's what we had, that the data shows is the crashes that are there is, as we know, it's very tight going through there, as well as the intersections aren't very well laid out, so.
What are you, like I said, what are you gonna do about these 18-wheelers that go down there? Are you gonna get those things out of there down the end? You know what I mean? You know they go down to Steamship Authority. Are you gonna get them out of
they're
there?
gonna be able to get down all the way to the shipyard and back.
Yeah, they go down, like.
Well, that's why we're here to discuss.
Are you gonna, like you said.
That's why we leaving Middle Street all the way, Middle Street is open all the way to Washington.
How can you take a left with one of these rigs that are like 70 feet long?
To where?
You're coming off of Union, and you're gonna take a left on Middle, how are you gonna turn that corner?
How do they leave now? A lot of them go
A lot
down
of them,
Middle.
what they're doing, they're going over here, they come off of anything, they come down here,
Come down where?
They're over here, down over here. You have them coming over here. They go down this way, just all right. Just to say if you wanna come out, all right, say if you gotta come down here, you gotta go down this way. How you gonna take a right over here with a rig? In front of Margaret's?
Well, you're not
It's
taking,
not.
See if you wanna take a right to go down over here. Where you gonna go with an 18-wheeler?
the 18-wheeler would have to come down through Water and then up through Ferry.
Yeah, but you see these guys come down, like it says, from other states. You have, like I said, how many times you got these 18-wheelers coming down here looking for New Bedford? And they're over here.
Fortunately,
And I'm over there going, go this way, go that way.
It's close if you're from the deep south.
Just tell them to take a right.
Ambulance back up, they pull up, on Middle Street, they make a left-hand turn, pull up alongside of Cumberland Farms, and then they blind back down to the,
Yeah.
to Harbor Loop. I know, cause I live there.
Yeah.
And when you said you're gonna put the cars on the west side, there's people that park on Washington Street below Middle to Water. When they come up to Middle Street, if there's a 5 tenement next, right on that corner, there's cars all
along
there,
here,
Yeah.
all on there. You cannot see
right there.
any traffic coming north. You have to ease out and ease out and ease out till you're almost through the intersection before you can see anybody coming down. So if you keep parking on that west side, you're not
On the
safe.
west side of
Of
Washington
Middle
Street?
Street. On the west side of Middle Street,
Between Washington and Union.
on Washington, between Washington and Union or Ferry, you wanna make Middle Street north, right?
We would, one of the proposals would be to head it,
Make
yes.
it north and have parking right on that corner.
Parking on the same side it's on now.
You can't see down the street,
So,
so put the parking on the other side so at least you can see the traffic coming at you. Because right now, if I'm parked in front of my house and I wanna go and make a left turn onto Middle to go to Route 6, I cannot see till I'm through that intersection.
Into the middle.
the two-
And you don't know how many times you jack on your brakes because somebody, and you're right, they come flying down there. Because once you're out of work, you wanna go home, and they fly down.
They're
there.
flying north on Middle?
You bet.
Fly
home. You bet.
They have to get over the bridge.
Yeah,
You have to get over the bridge because that bridge opens at 1:00.
Which is like a lottery, it's when it actually opens.
And we don't like
3 minutes
signs,
up.
and we don't have a sign at across from the skipper. If you wanna know if the bridge is open,
Yeah.
you gotta go to Main Street.
Yeah, get us one of those too.
And you know, those signs don't work half the time.
get a real guy to use
And
them,
if
the
you
guy who
get
flips
the
the
ones-
switch,
So,
right?
all right, those signs
And
don't.
if you get the ones that signs that work on 195 and Route 18, I like that too.
I would too. Yes, ma'am.
Our wish list.
These streets are narrow, they weren't meant for this amount of traffic. I don't understand why this town has so much on-street parking. That's a big part of the problem. If you've taken a narrow road, you've narrowed it down to a lane and a half, because there's constantly people the whole way up Main Street, all his side streets parking. You need to address the parking and make it streets for people to drive on and not parking lots.
Well,
Yeah, but
a lot of the, it's a
Density.
it's, I will address it. This is,
It's gotta be transportation, it's not, there's not parking lots.
yeah, this is
Okay.
part of the historic character of the
Right.
what was the 20-acre purchase. It's one of the original sections of town, and it was just developed that way. And these multi-family dwellings are on, 3,000 square foot lots.
Not gonna
You,
change.
if you take no parking, then it doesn't go, I mean, if you put no parking on either one of these streets, there's no place for any of these folks to go. I mean,
Open up a parking garage.
Well, right now, you don't have any parking on Middle from Route 6
That wouldn't work
to,
anywhere else.
from Route 6 to,
Washington.
College Street.
right.
No parking. If you extended that to Pease, and you would really eliminate a real bad problem right
Which
Yeah.
corner?
Because if you're coming down
Right at the boat ramp, yeah.
right at the boat ramp.
Yeah.
Oh, this
Right
corner?
There that I gotta put, yeah,
Right.
it's pitched right
There's
there.
only
There's usually like one or two cars
There's
right by
only-
the, on
right,
the
there's only
side.
two or
That's
three
it.
cars.
But it puts the traffic on the wrong side of the road. If you're coming around Pease Street, you almost head-on collision.
So that's where I live.
That's
Is
why-
that your car?
No, that's actually the next door neighbor on Middle Street. Because when I moved there just a few years ago, and when I moved there, I parked there once. And I said, I would never park
Yeah,
there.
it's crazy.
I parked there literally once, and then I moved my car out of there and I parked
And
in
she's
South
been
Parking
hit.
Lot.
Yes, many times.
And, yes,
Yeah,
and,
but she continues to
She
park.
continues to park.
and she has off-street parking too. I don't even have off-street parking.
If she was here, I wouldn't have brought it up.
But nonetheless, I
I
actually,
talked to her the other day about that.
I actually.
It's good business for Rui.
Right. It's not actually a bad thing in the way that it slows traffic down though.
But it's also blind. because
Yes,
there's a
I
bend
agree,
there.
I don't really think there should be
Yeah.
parking there, but at the same time, if you put a stop sign at
Amen.
Middle and Pease, because what happens is everybody's pulling out of, in the summertime especially, everyone's going in and out of the boat ramp. And for some reason, everybody likes to peel out when they're coming out of the boat ramp.
Yeah.
They're cool.
It's that six pack.
And they
That
do,
last six back.
they do one of two things, either they turn left onto Middle, heading towards Route 6, or they go down Pease Street, where I purposely park my car right there, so that way everybody has the bottleneck right there, so they can't peel down Pease Street, because I've seen many a time when my car isn't parked there, and there's a couple other people that park there too, they zoom straight through Pease Street, right into Middle, and they don't even stop, right onto Main, sorry, and they don't even stop to go, they just turn onto Main Street. And
No stop sign.
They don't even
there
realize
is a
it.
stop sign there, actually, to get onto Main,
Yeah.
but they just know.
I know, I put that in. I've repaved and rebuilt every street in that section
So,
of
I
town.
like my sidewalk, by the way.
You're welcome.
I feel like if you eliminate the parking there especially, which I think probably is a positive thing, a stop sign would be a big help to slow people down. I mean,
Just
basically.
any stop sign
that should
on
be a
Middle
four-way
Street would
stop
be great.
almost.
Yeah, really, it would be almost like a four-way stop there,
But
with
there's
the
no,
boat ramp.
there's no speed limits on the street, so.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But at least it makes them stop.
That's why people do donuts in that parking lot, you know, all,
Yeah.
you know.
Chief, what is this?
Well, speed, there's a speed limit on every street. As you guys, most of us all know, 'cause we all remember when we drive. So speed limit sign. it's
60,
5.
right?
Yes.
Actual speed limit, or are you talking legal?
What
It's 30,
It's
it's 30
30.
and congested, yes.
That's too high.
I mean, in middle.
It's
But it's not enforced.
Right.
It's not posted.
I've never
Well,
seen
it doesn't
anybody.
have to be posted.
Well, for the people who speed down, it would be nice, because let me tell you, many times when I'm walking three little children, age 1, 3, and 8, and I'm actually having them walk on the inside of the sidewalk, because I'm afraid somebody's gonna run them over on the
Well,
edge.
they're trying to.
I start screaming at them going, you know, you're going 50 miles an hour!
There's crosswalks there, too. They won't stop during the
So
crosswalk.
I'm a crazy big mouth grandmother, but I mean, if people don't see the sign that says 25 or 30 or whatever, they just,
Just, you
Just
know
so
what I mean?
the signs are regulated by the Mass DOT, and there's strict regulations to them, like a stop sign there wouldn't work, you're not allowed to have a stop sign just to slow traffic. You gotta have X amount of vehicles through it in an hour, you gotta have so many crashes within a year span.
Can you measure that when everybody's pulling out the boat?
Right after the bridge is cycled.
Yeah, but we find most of the time the speed limits nowadays, in order to actually change for the town to go and change a speed limit on a street, you have to have an engineering study done, where they have to come down and do, once again, a traffic count and a speed count. As we all know, if the speed limit's 30, they're all doing 50, but what happens is when they do the speed count, they go with whatever the speed is at the 80th percentile. So they find that if that speed limit by statute is 30, you do a study, it's gonna show you should be doing 40, because people are going so fast.
Why don't you put?
So what about taking out parking places? Is there a big
That can
process
be
for
done by
that?
the town, yes.
Yeah.
No parking, yes,
So-
can be.
What about?
Let me, Miss Louie, you had your hand up.
This is an easy one, I hope. It's about parking. When you go down Middle Street toward Route 6, there's
What section?
the very last block before Route 6.
Okay.
There's no parking on the right-hand side. Then there's a sign that says, no parking here at the corner.
mhm.
Oh, for that one,
Right, okay. But
in front of the multifamily, right across from the,
Yeah.
Always up in front of the fire hydrant. And just.
I stopped behind them once,
I
thinking
see.
that they were traffic.
I wait for them to move when the light changes, and they don't realize the car's not here.
And that really,
Right
that
then,
bothers them.
waiting for the light to change.
Because it's
And that's-
oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear. Please, let it give her a chance.
It bottlenecks the intersection because somebody parks there.
That's right.
It's no longer, there's no longer enough room for anything large to come through. So if there's somebody going toward Route 6, then the person on Route 6 can't turn right. It's just a mess, and it's
A lot of
really
times they
fixed.
turn right at such a rapid speed that you have to wait and make sure it's safe to go forward, because it's very
And you can't
hazardous.
see because there's a car parked there.
Yeah.
That's a really easy one.
Yeah, it sounds like it's already no parking.
Then removing the parking spots.
This,
Well, if it just takes the sign out, I don't think people would do it. But it makes it look like a street to park,
Yeah, no.
supporting it to that.
Exactly.
And it's
Yeah.
not.
Well, I think there's some parking there, right, because they, for the liquor store, so I think they
That's
allow.
this is after, this is just north of the North VFW. There's a multifamily there.
They have off-street parking. So
Hmm?
they have off-street parking.
Yeah. Okay, we can, I'm writing some of these things down. We can look at some of these.
I was gonna say is, instead of putting a cop on Scott Connect Road doing radar, why don't you put him over there on Middle Street? It's, you know, it's so many times, like I said, I had one time a cop over there, and he clocked one doing 53 in front of my place, and that's from Route 6 to there. So it would be nice, like I said, I seen one of the cops over there before, why don't you just have a cop over there with the boat ramp? Cause you kidding me, you hand out a fistful of tickets like nothing.
And then we move on. I mean, honestly, and not joking,
I know, but it's,
no matter where we go in town.
it'd be nice if you just stick them over there for a while. I had the traffic slow down for quite some time when I had the cruisers out there, they're like, oh, Jesus Christ, the cops. Now they all know, now they all know I fixed the cars and scratch out my cars.
So,
That's
the person right behind Rui, yes, sir.
I was just gonna say that, you know, if we just enforce the laws, my wife is legally blind, and trying to cross Middle Street on Union is, and then crossing Main Street on Union is horrendous.
And we striped all these,
I
we've done all the
know it's right, But it
crosswalks.
doesn't do any good when the guy's doing 50 miles an hour down the street. And there's, you know, I'm not, you know, saying I know you do what you can, but I've been there 2 years and I've never seen an officer on Middle, you know, with a radar, checking speed.
That would be great, just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, cause then they'll know.
Even put up a sign, you know, one of those
Not
signs
the
that
road
shows
card.
you, people see them and they slow down.
We'll make,
Wow.
it's actually Alex Fairhaven right now, I'll make notes.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Another dangerous intersection on Middle Street is Middle and Union. They blow right through that stop sign. And I make a habit when I'm coming down Union going west to stop because I'm certain somebody's gonna blow through the intersection. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if they're going north or they're going
Even though
south.
Union has the right of way in that
Yes,
section.
There's so many, sort of not villagers in the town now during the week. They totally disregard the nature of the village. They blow through there, they're going to work, they don't give a damn, they're leaving, they're going to go beat the bridge, and they have total disregard for the nature of the community that's in Fairhaven.
Put a stop sign too on Bridge and Main, cause that's, you know how many accidents over there.
Yeah.
Like it says, that's why I mean.
That has
they
poor
would
sight
need to-
distance both ways.
Yeah, cause you look at it, just over there, like it says, here you go with an 18-wheeler, just say they're going down there. It's like you said, it's just,
I just have a
someone's gonna
question
get
then,
killed.
Chief, so then you said that there are certain requirements that we need to meet in order to be able to put up stop signs.
It's called meeting warrants. It's
Okay.
an engineering term,
Okay,
and it's a very difficult threshold.
and it's going to cost the town money to get an engineering study, is that part of that? Okay, so this is a money issue in terms of being able to get the stop signs.
And meeting the warrants, you know, even though I'm not a transportation engineer, I've been doing this for about 25 years, and the chief's probably been doing it about 25, 30 years. Knowing the traffic and the accidents and whatnot, I would say that I would venture to guess that a significant portion of where you want to put these stop signs don't meet engineering warrants.
But some of them may,
Huh?
but some of them may.
I would venture to guess that I don't,
I'd say probably not, but.
probably not.
Possibility, yes.
Can you ever get exceptions to that?
I know, it's a small little village, I mean, there's gonna be some way that people who live there should be safe.
Yeah, legal.
Like Washington, Maine, that could be a four-way stop at Washington, Maine would help a lot there.
I will not say there aren't illegal signs in this town.
Because of that visibility.
Yeah. Well, between and Washington and Maine actually has the worst site visibility without.
That one,
Flat out, it's the worst. Plus you have the Cumberland Farms. So, and I know that. I drive these streets all the time, and I know that
I know, I
because-
pick up the cars from them too. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
just like I said, you got these people, they're flying, but you gotta put some stop signs somewhere, cause like I said, as soon as you get onto Middle Street, it's the Autobahn. Where's your first stop sign on Middle Street once you get over there? It's down at what, Center? That's your first stop sign?
Yeah.
That's your first
There's
stop
none.
sign?
Yep.
Is it Union?
Yeah, there is one
Yeah,
on South.
okay.
There is that one on
Yes,
Saturday.
Gail.
Oh, it's, I have a question.
Excuse me, excuse
When I
me.
took my driver's license, you know, they had one of the questions was if you drive in a densely populated area where the houses were so close, the speed limit was 20 miles an hour. Is that no longer, because 30 miles an
You're
hour
showing
is
your
way
age.
too fast.
Oh, I like that.
30.
That's
Way too fast.
Even if you go through Acushnet, the speed limit there is 20.
Can't we set our own speed limit?
I've seen some of those.
Again, without a study and an engineering study with them taking the percentiles, you
It's not enforceable. If we put,
Tell them there's 50 accidents in a year. You can't put
so,
that.
I guess some of the things about not being enforceable, if we put the stop sign up and then somebody runs the thing and we just put it up and the accident's there, I think the police chief can talk about, you know, if we just put the thing up, then it's not enforceable, unfortunately.
it's not enforceable by some obviously the town flag also.
Is this under state law?
Hand out tickets, man, people gonna freak out, you know what I mean? They gotta slow down.
What about signage
Just
like
say no to
trooper
it.
out there.
It does, but,
Yeah.
Every day.
I'll go park a car.
I'm sorry, there's too many people talking. Yes, ma'am?
What about signage like caution, thickly settled, park at your own risk, children,
Sinkhole.
things that might kind of.
Yeah, well,
Can we do that, or do we need to have a study?
no, some of those explanation signs don't need studies. I will let you know, the caution, children at play, I, from my planning experience, totally oppose those because those give the people and the residents a false sense of security.
True.
And the child at play signs are in the latest manual that they really in the latest they call it the manual MUTCSD, the manual of traffic uniform control devices. I think they're even taking those out of even ones that are permitting.
Or maybe
But
crosswalk?
well,
Crosswalk ahead?
all of the
something
new crosswalks we put in all have crosswalk signs. They have the
Yeah,
signs,
pay
crosswalk.
attention.
They all have them.
Yeah.
All the new ones, actually, that I know that because I know that we put the mid-block one just above, which used to be Jerry's, now it's the Crane, it's A&A. Just past that, we have that mid-block and that sign with the crosswalk there. But all of the crosswalks that we put in, you know, that we did with the block grant, those are all signed.
What you find nowadays is that people don't.
No.
So, you know,
You have a cop doing details over there when they do the what do you call it, the cable things over there all the time, and they fly right by the cop like an idiot. It's like,
yeah.
you know, if, like I said, if you just turn around, like you said, they're gonna know after a while, guess what, you're gonna get a ticket, you're gonna slow down.
Yeah. Some of these things I don't know, you know, we can't change people's driving habits, but we
Yeah,
do
no,
want.
they will.
Yeah, he can change it.
Why can't we?
Well, see, like, you know, I used to have my shop in Fall River, we used to go down Route 6 and from Westport into Fall River, there's that restaurant over there on the left-hand side where there was always a cop over there. And they turn around because they turn from one speed limit to another and hand out tickets. And you know something? I learned because I got pulled over myself and I'm like, you know something? Now I'm going to learn there's a cop going to be over there. And people slow down because they always hand out tickets. And guess what? People slow down. And like I said, you have like an Autobahn there.
And doesn't that increase our revenue? If we hand out tickets to all these truck drivers?
Now that's a story you have to go.
No, that goes to the, that actually goes to the state, should go to the state.
Not just the truck
There
But
are
yes.
a lot of people
A lot
that
of people.
are, their mind is not on what they're doing. They're they're heading down to the dock, they're heading, I mean, they're busy.
So,
They don't all
But it's a
need
very
to be,
congested area.
you know,
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Dartmouth just did this down by the DNRT. I'm working down in Westport in the house, and, they had an accident, guy straight on into the, guardrail down by their boat ramp up the top of the Slocum River, and they put a trooper there for 2 weeks. And nobody and people were going by there. I mean, it's kind of like Fairhaven, but with trees and windy. And people were doing 60, 70 miles an hour. Now they're doing 30, because that's the limit.
And one of the things we might be able to look at, I mean, everything costs money, so we have to look at funding for it, is sometimes, if you notice those, like if you drive over in Marion past Tabor actually put them in, you know, the signs that say what the speed limit is and shows what you're speeding. You know, those might be an option also.
Those would be great.
So, and those are, you know, those are permanent things. We can look at some of those.
Those are self-awareness. I see them and I see I'm 5 over, I slow down.
Yeah.
Photo taking.
Oh, you go down a property.
Photo tickets is not allowed. There's too many attorneys in the Massachusetts legislature that would never allow that. But it's allowed in numerous states. Mr. Espindola had a question.
Well, it was just gonna be about the cost issue, and I just don't want people here to think that that's the reason we wouldn't do a traffic study. That's, yeah, there is a cost. I think the word was, well, you know, we've done it before, whenever there's something like this. We brought this up. We've had people come to our selectmen meetings and say, we'd like a stop sign, put in, you know, they've come to us with this, we're bringing this to you,
Yeah.
actually, to say we want input from you. We know there are some issues there, we wanna see if we can solve it. But I just don't wanna give the message that we're not willing to do a study if it's warranted. You know, and we just need to, also take into account where practical, because if history tells us it's probably not going to bear fruit, we don't wanna just spend money unnecessarily.
And the first thing we would talk with our regional planning agencies that have transportation planners, and they will take the initial quick look at it, and they'll say, Bill, and they'll talk to myself and the police chief, and they'll say, this will not meet warrants. Yeah, and they know. So I don't think we're going to solve all the problems. I mean, I've taken down some things that.
You can't make it perfect. We know that.
Huh?
You can't make it perfect.
We can't make it perfect.
18th century town.
Right. Some of the things that we might consider doing is, and we've been discussing this, is the very narrow section of Main Street. It's essentially, you know, we can't get the parking, we can't prohibit the parking on the one side of the street, which I know a lot of people would like, but there's no other place for some of these people to park. That is really parking in a lane and 3 feet wide. Maybe that narrower section warrants having the one way. Maybe some of the residential area on Middle Street warrants the one ways. Maybe there's the combination of that and some of the, you know, taking some of the parking out on the lower section that we've talked about over here. Some of these other signages.
Can you put a sign to like require the big trucks to go down Water Street? Like you can, you know, I don't know what they call it.
Truck
Somebody
route?
plans- Yeah.
We can look
So
into
that the
truck
cars
routes.
keep going down.
Well, so, see, the problem you have, the problem you have with getting it down Water Street is right at the corner of Washington and Middle. There's the brick building here. There's a telephone pole there. We spent a lot of money. We rebuilt all of these streets in here, and we went round and round for like 9 months with the utility company on options on moving that, and there was no viable option that they would consider on moving it, because it's got the supports, and I don't want to get into it, but we looked at, you know, exhaustively with the utilities numerous times, because because everyone around here talks about it, and I kept on seeing it. You have semis, and I don't think it's as bad that Harbor Blue's been sold, because I think they have the smaller trucks.
Worse.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's,
Well,
well, I know where you live, yeah. I renewed your street right here, you've been out there, so.
The problem is, there's parking on Water Street, so if those trailers could come down Washington and then they get to Water, if they go to turn onto Water and there's somebody parked at Harbor Hydraulics, they can't make the turn. Then they hit the telephone pole on the corner of Water and.
Or they cut through,
Or they
cut through, they go between the
No,
the
I'm
telephone
talking,
pole.
once they get on to Washington, and you wanna go down and make a left onto Water,
Oh.
there's cars parked in front of Harbor Hydraulics.
Right.
If they're big trailers, they can't make the turn, then they come over the sewer, or they
So,
hit the
so
telephone
some
pole.
of these things, maybe when we can go out and take a look at it, maybe we look at adding some of those no parking from here to curb signs, which eases up some of that.
We already
Yeah.
don't have enough parking for tenants.
Huh?
We already
We
don't have enough parking for tenants.
There's a fine family in
Because
back
with the
of us.
fishermen parking out on the street,
Yeah,
where
we
the
have-
tenants should be parking, they park their cars, they're gone for 12, 15 days.
And we have
Their
no
cars
parking.
sitting there.
That's my problem on Middle Street.
How about a resident
That's
only
an
parking section?
Yeah, that's,
That's an
there's no.
Can they park for 12 days?
The fishermen park all over there.
No, yeah, regulating fishing is gonna be tough.
I was just gonna say, obviously, parking, traffic control signs, those are very important, and we've heard a lot of feedback in that regards. But I'd like to get some input in terms of our concept of the one-way streets, whether you think that's viable or something we should pursue, so.
We've been asking for it for 4 years.
Yeah. As a bicyclist, I think it's a great idea, when you're trying to ride down.
Why don't you ask the people if they want that? Please raise your hand.
That's what we're looking
Right
at.
here.
The Middle Street plan, none of it bothers me.
Well,
I don't know how the town is.
Up to, Washington Street, I think that's great.
And,
I think it's good.
and
It's
Main,
gotta be two-way.
and Main Street, I believe, ultimately is gonna have to be two-way up to Washington Street. It's, because I don't think we have a viable option for the emergency service. Essentially, the fire department comes down Washington Street, they bang that turn, and that's their route into North Fairhaven. And we're about 95% sure, you know, then I know that the deputy chief's here and he's expressed concern, so that's probably, the options that we're really looking at, if we do some of the one-way, it would really be limited from Washington Street south to Ferry. We might have to look at turning Ferry around. But other than that, you know, we can look at some, that's kind of the concept about, do people think?
If you slow is gonna be with the rigs.
Hmm?
Once they do this change to the one ways, how are
If
the
we do
rigs
it.
gonna go through?
Well, we'll have to take a look at
You
that,
what
I don't
mean?
know. And
That I
I,
think is a big concern.
now, are you talking about the rigs?
The
Well,
18-wheelers.
that would go by your place on Main Street. Are they headed to the Steamship Authority?
Most of the rigs, poor things. One day we got an 18-wheeler on Main Street trying to turn onto Union, okay? He can't make the turn because somebody's parked, they're not that close to the curb, it's not like they're close to the corner.
Right.
But they're parked there, he can't make the turn. Now we got another 18-wheeler coming up. He can't go anywhere because this guy's stuck.
I hope
Now,
it wasn't
try
delivering
coming
the
up
sheet
this
piles
way,
when we were
that's no
building
idea.
Union Wharf.
So, obviously, this is not a daily occurrence,
Right.
but it's something that you guys need to know is happening out there. I mean, the guy's trying to back up, there's a water, fire hydrant, a telephone
And there's
pole,
stuff.
somebody's porch is right there, his car's over there.
Right.
It's a very tight, that's where the issue with the rigs, aside from, like she said, some of these truck drivers are flying. I don't find that with the 18-wheelers. I have a lot of respect for those guys.
No,
I don't know how the hell they're doing it.
Maybe I can ask,
Really?
Max, how do you schedule your deliveries? Let me, hold on, please. How do you schedule your deliveries?
How do we schedule?
I mean, how do you,
We pull them into, down Middle Street, that's why it would be awful if that happened, because we need to come down Middle Street to Union Street. That's where they make the turn, there.
Yeah, they drive up,
You're not
they
gonna
drive
turn
up to
it
Mr.
down.
Pelletier's house, and I've seen them miss it by that much. They've hit the house out responsible.
Sure, sure it is. But they're not our trucks, I don't. Oh.
So a lot of your deliveries don't try to make that Washington turn and then Water Street turn?
That's tight.
I'm telling you, that is tight.
There's no other way to do
What's
that.
wrong with the middle?
Don't they come through that
Bottom.
parking lot right above your
And they
name?
go 3 times a week.
Well, somebody made the suggestion of the truck
Don't-
route.
'cause I've
Isn't there
seen
some way before we
There's a-
decide on this that
There's
we
that
could
parking lot
actually?
right above.
Oh, we can talk, yeah, I know that, you know, and we can discuss about truck route,
Yeah.
and at that point, I would be sitting down with the businesses, like the shipyard and the steamship authority, and saying, okay, you know, what size trucks, what are you looking at? I know that I had, when we were doing the sheet piles, we had extremely large, those long sheet piles, and those trucks, trying to get those in here, were extremely difficult. They actually eventually came Green down and then made the turn down Union and came down Union. But they went right over the
I
sidewalks.
don't think there's any good turn from Middle or Main.
No.
Right now, traffic both ways are not. I don't think there's any good viable turn, because all those streets are so small, so I don't,
They're not
whether
designed
traffic
for
was
it.
one way either way, I don't think there's a good intersection now. I think they say the best thing is sit down and try to get them on green.
Yeah, that's, I think that's.
So, but some of the
truck
truck stuff,
route is
but
another problem.
aside from that, some of the one-way, especially on like Main, from, you know, the Center Street section or the Washington Street up, where it's essentially, the road width is extremely narrow, especially in front of your place.
Well, you know, you get all the parked cars and,
Yeah. Well, parked cars, 3 feet,
yeah.
and a drive, and a
And
lane.
they're driving up on that sidewalk, almost taking out the
They
porch
destroy
across the
the
street, 'cause that's where
sidewalk.
they live. And I mean, it's because they're in a hurry, they got stuff going on. Yeah, they don't, there's no pausing there. It's hurry up and urgently get through.
Yes, ma'am.
Back to like the main street between Bridge and I know you said it probably is gonna end up being 2 ways. But if you put those blinking speed limit signs, do you think that would slow the traffic, at least approaching up to Washington? Cause that is like a speed zone from Bridge or from Route 6 all the way to Washington, cause there's no stop sign.
And back.
Yeah, back and forth, it's a
Back and
speed zone.
forth, because I run the funeral home and they see the lights green and they step on the gas. You
Oh,
can hear
I
it.
know.
And trying to back out of my driveway on the main street? Ouch.
Yeah, so if
That's
it
that's
was
a frightening.
to remind people, it might
They mean-
slow the traffic when you approach
I'm
them.
gonna- I'll get a big-
We can look at that. We can look at those options. Until tonight, I never really thought about that that's why we're having this meeting. You guys live here, you work here, your businesses, and
The police department is gonna be working, through Mr. Espandola, going out to, we were gonna go out to some of the improvement associations for those type of signs, as well as at one point, we were gonna look into the businesses community. Because obviously for the town itself to put the bill for all those signs all over town, it may be a bit much. So I'll throw it out there to some of the business owners, or even residents now. We would be perfectly willing to accept the responsibility of putting them up, monitoring them and all that, if people were willing to help out in the
So,
cost.
what he's talking about is the electronic signs.
That
that
go on the
speed limit,
telephone pole.
As opposed to the type that goes out on a trailer right now.
yeah, well, that's what we're talking. The type. If everyone driven by Tabor Academy going into Marion?
Yeah.
Okay, do you know what I'm talking about? Those 2 signs are on both sides.
Yeah, how much do those signs cost?
Oh, I have no idea, but we can look at it. We can always, you know, there's always funding options.
There's a whole bunch of it.
Yeah.
2,000, I believe.
I think a couple grand. Everything's a couple grand.
What if you're the one going all the way down Main? What do you think of that?
Huh? The one problem with the one-way on Main was our initial is we have.
South, way south.
Hmm?
Where you said it's gonna start two-way again?
We're thinking. Well, one of the issues.
You mean down at Church Street?
Yeah, down near church.
Other end.
The other end, the other end.
Going down.
South.
Oh, continuing it.
South.
So.
Cause I can see people who aren't familiar, they don't realize it, and
That's
then,
a nice little sightseeing bit.
yeah.
Yeah. The sightseeing bin.
And that's a scary two-way.
Right, I know.
Right.
And that's on my list to actually look at. That was well beyond the scope of what we were looking at. We were basically looking from Ferry, down to Huddleston. Yes, ma'am.
The other suggestion work, because the speed of the traffic changed when the steamship authority went in there, when the shipyard expanded, and with the expansion of some of the other businesses in there. And if the employers were able to do some teaching with their employees about how they're driving, it might be helpful to raise their consciousness about their style of driving in a neighborhood, in a community.
I agree, and I think we should hit those businesses up with some of these signs.
So, the gentleman way in the back.
I've heard now about like the commercial guys, I'm one of the guys, okay? I own a crane company that's over there. This is not a commercial or a residential type problem, this is a traffic problem. This has nothing to do with more people coming into town, this has to do with more cars on the road. I backed out of my business one time and got hit by a woman who was probably 60 years old doing about 50 miles an hour down the road. So it happens, I watch it all day long. It's passenger cars and trucks.
And you're at where the Jerry's used to be. Yeah.
And I'm watching it all day.
Oh, I know.
We as employees have to watch when we're backing out. We train our guys so we don't get hit. Because people are texting and they're going down the road and they're doing it. It's not a commercial thing, it's not a business thing, it's a traffic control thing.
Oh, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about traffic control issues. One ways, signs, you name it. We're, so. Yes, sir.
I don't know how this fits into the rest of the discussion, but one thing that happens is the shipyard has a parking lot that extends from Water Street to Middle Street, and we live across the street from the Middle Street end of the parking lot. And one thing you have is a lot of really extremely large trucks use the parking lot as a thoroughfare. They turn left in the parking lot, I suppose, and then left onto Middle Street. One time they bumped into a tree which had to be removed. Several times they got caught up on the curb on the other side of the street and gouged our little strip of grass. And
Are you talking about like delivery trucks?
I don't know what they are, but they're really huge. And so why are people allowed to drive big trucks through parking lots?
It's their parking lot. It's easier than the street.
You can make that turn better through their parking lot than on Union Street, not Union Center. Because if you went to Center and you had to make that turn.
They can make it better out of their parking lot.
Yeah. That's why you got more room in your parking lot, thank God for that.
Yeah.
Plus, this is a lot of local people, because, I mean, I have customers coming to my store from, let's say, Portsmouth, Rhode Island. They're creeping up Main Street, and they will say to me, how do you stand driving up this street? It's so different. So it is mostly locals, whether they work, live, doesn't matter. Like I said, they're busy. Their minds are on what they're doing, and I think we all have to take responsibility. We all back out of our driveways and hopefully are paying attention to the kids on the street and the trucks and the, but I think that we're gonna have to do something to beef things up, make things a little safer. Yeah.
And that's why we're here.
I
We're,
think that's a pretty good proposal, but I'm still concerned about the rigs a little bit there. But I think we probably could work that out.
Well, we need to kind of talk with the
Maybe
major
walk
businesses
around,
that have
yeah.
those rigs and what size, how are they coming in, and kind of, work through.
I mean, are the truck drivers complaining? I'm having a hell of a time trying to get in here.
Oh, the truck, I know that the truck drivers, when we were doing the sheet piles, and actually those trucks were even longer than the average truck that would come, a lot longer than the trucks. Those things were absolutely impossible. And I'm a little worried because we've got another $1 million to do more sheet piles, so we'll be putting those in next year.
We have to try and figure out something to make it industrious, make it work.
Right.
Yeah.
For everybody concerned.
Well, I was hoping to get that telephone pole out of the way
Yeah.
and work with the
Well, if
property
we go
owner.
down the street, someone will take it up.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised it hasn't been taken out.
Well, it's been hit already.
It's hit all the time.
It's been hit.
So.
And how about some running boots for runners? I mean.
Well,
Which part of the street do they get?
And one of the things that we are looking at going to have to, what we're looking at doing is making a bicycle connection, whether it be a striped, the ideal thing was if we could have done Main Street one way, we would have done parking, a road, an aisle, and a 3 to 4 foot parking, a 3 to 4 foot bike lane all the way up. It would have been in the ideal world, but we don't obviously live in the ideal world. So, but we have to look at making it, huh?
Nobody in his right mind would ride a bicycle on Main Street.
If it was all one way, if it was one way. So we are looking at making a bicycle connection somehow from coming across the bridge. There's some of the bikeway committee folks here, probably up Middle Street, and then figure a way to get over to the larger section, the wider section of Middle. So we really want to try to get those speeds down too. So.
Is it possible to paint the designated car lanes for the parking? Is it possible to do that? Do you know what I mean by that? Where they paint the stripe in the road where you park between this line and that line, then they do another this line, that line.
You mean like where they kind of?
Spaces.
Like in New Bedford, like in downtown Bedford?
Like actually make parking spaces, so that way you can park here, or you can park here, you can't park here where it takes up the parking spot.
That would be a good thing too.
Well, we can look at it. It's a long-term maintenance issue with that. Getting, paint's cheap, but when you're using, you look at they budget enough money. Public Works does. If you notice at in the spring, a lot of the crosswalks get repainted, and that usually extends their budget. But we can, I'll put that on the list. That you actually.
I'll keep the sidewalks for yellow.
I could always put the metered parking in. And start a little parking authority in the metered parking, but I'm sure that the two people that live here wouldn't. But, metered parking actually is not.
I don't think this would fly in the slightest. Some of these areas you could say subcompact parking only. Will that fly? I have no clue.
Everyone with their F-250 will say, I got it right here.
That's racist. Hey, wait a minute, I'll be offended, I got an F-250.
That's all right, when you run my Mini over, I'll bring it by the shop.
So, yes, Bob.
So, two questions for you. First is, in some communities in the city, we do see signage that says permanent parking only, permanent parking by permit only, or something like that. Is that something that could be done in these areas to prevent someone parking there for 12 days or something?
Permit parking is something that, yes, it's something that it is allowed under state law, and it is something we could look at. I believe that we would probably, because the Board of Selectmen would probably have to do that, and so that would, I think we would probably take that meeting upstairs to the, it would be I think it would be very controversial to do permit parking, because then you're gonna have to regulate it, sign it, we're gonna have to ticket it, enforcing it, setting up that whole infrastructure. And the reason they do the permit parking is they also have the revenue and the income stream from the metered parking. So that they have a whole parking management section. It's more of a bigger city thing. The smaller communities, it's doable, but it's very difficult.
The other thing that wasn't really a question, it was more just clarification. Someone asked before how much those digital speed signs cost, and I said it's around $10,000, and I wanted to clarify that, because I just looked up an email that came in. This was a little while back. Initially this came up actually on West Island, or it came up in general from time to time. We get complaints, whether it's Chronic Neck or other parts of North Fairhaven, in all these areas, we do get complaints about speed. And so then my history has been to call chief and say, can you bring out the trailer and put it in this area? People are complaining, and try to help. Last summer, the people in West Island made a point to really point out concerns they had about speed over the causeway and other areas. So we started looking into this a little bit. Sergeant Patello came up with some pricing on these different signs systems, and the $10,000 was actually in the range for 4 of them. So you would if you bought 4 of them. Now, I believe that way that would work is at one point you need 2, just at that one point. So 4 would only cover 2 locations. And if we were to look to do this in this part of town, surely there'd be people asking in other parts of town. So we were just trying to be cautious about, certainly we didn't have a budget for it this year, and that's how the subject came up with improvement associations. Maybe someone would be willing to do this if they felt like it was important in their area. Otherwise, in another year's budget, it could be considered, can we afford this kind of a thing?
And speaking of budgets, we talked about traffic studies, about equipment, things of that nature. We're just starting the budget cycle for next year, and so I'll talk with the Board of Public Works, Vinnie Furtado, who's the superintendent, and I believe he has access through state money, Chapter 90 money, to perhaps do traffic studies in town. I know that, so I'll talk with him about it. Also, we'll look to see what we can do about putting a request into the budget process. That doesn't mean that ultimately it'll be approved, but I think that need should be considered with, all the other needs that the community has. So we'll see what we can do to pursue some funding avenues.
And also, I wonder, I'm sorry, this woman's holding her hand up here too. Mine just is a lead, as a tie into that, where we also have Mr. Roth, who's involved in the master planning. I don't know if this is the type of thing that goes into that master planning process too. We talk about speed, and the different things that you might want to do in the roadways to make them safe. Is that the type of?
No, the land use master plan looks at overall, it looks at the 30,000 view of traffic, Route 6, 240, the main corridors and that. It's the 10,000 foot view. We're at the foot level view here with this. And the reason, and we put a lot of time and effort into this because, as Rui knows and a lot of you know, for like the last 7 years, I've had a yellow vest out here on all of these roads, so I see what you're going through. So we know what the issues are. There's no perfect solution. We wanted to open the conversation. There's several things here that we didn't even consider, and I thank you for your comments. And nothing's decided. We're still in the process of just trying to, formulate ideas. I think we're going to take this back. We're going to talk with Serped, going to talk with the fire and police and the Board of Public Works. And the highway superintendent had an emergency and couldn't come today. So that's what we're going to look at and maybe come out with some various different options. Yes, Ms.
So it seems to me, listening to everybody, the real problem is the speed problem.
Speed and the big trucks.
It seems to me if you make it one way, it's easier for them to speed because you don't have to go around cars or stop because another car's coming the other way. But if you need a traffic study to put up a speed limit sign?
The speed limit?
Yeah, you need a traffic study to put up a speed limit sign.
To change speed limit.
To change it.
To lower it.
To change it from 30.
When you have none.
Well, it's 30.
It's 30.
Oh, if you wanted to put 20, for instance, you'd have to get.
You can't just choose it.
You can't just choose it.
With the number of accidents that Mike reported in this area though, is that higher than compared to other parts of Fairhaven?
Without running it, I'm assuming it's pretty good. But again,
So that will bump us to the top of the list as far as the budget will
well,
go.
accidents goes more towards intersections, four-way stop signs. So that stretch out over all those intersections, and we don't know how many. I didn't break down to see which ones are actual intersections, which were side swipes, or things like that. So I couldn't answer that 100% right now. But that would play into it, yes.
So you're saying that because here's Fairhaven, it's a nice little small town, you have all these pretty little sidewalks, we want to kind of beef it up with all the tourism and, come visit everybody's businesses and meet in the restaurants, and yet we can't feel safe crossing the streets. Now, something is wrong about this, and I don't care what kind of study they're gonna come up with, that there must be some way that a small town is able to say that we want our residents and those visiting our little downtown area to be able to safely walk across the street. So, I mean, there's gotta be some way for that to happen. You can't just say that because some state says it's gotta hit this mark or that mark. I mean, if they're going so fast that all of us in this room and many people out there who didn't come really believe that speed is a factor, then I don't know whether or not making part of a street one way or the other is gonna have a significant impact. Yes, it will help in terms of visibility, it may cut down on, you know.
The
some of
side swipes. And there's safety benefits. I mean,
Yes.
every single intersection
Yes.
that I show up here
Yes.
has no visibility coming,
Yes.
anyone coming north.
I agree completely, but I think like the woman said over
Yeah.
there, is that, you know, if in fact they're one way, then all it does is help them pick up more speed, and if we can't put stop signs, from what I'm hearing, there's gotta be some way that we can at least lower the speed limit.
Well, I'll get with, and I'll work.
No, we're not saying we can't put them, what we say is we have to go through a regulatory process
Right.
that the state does. And
And-
the state provides, they have flexibility too. But
So-
I think the critical thing
Yeah.
is to.
And I'm gonna
You think
take,
it could happen?
and I'm going to take some of these,
No, I know, but
Yeah.
it sounded before like you said that the state might not agree with what we would
They have
request
their
it.
standards and you just have to.
Well, then I guess maybe
yeah,
we
and
should
we'll
investigate that.
work with our transportation planners at the regional planning agency to say, because they understand the issues too.
It's a
They've been
small
out here,
town. We need to have them slow down.
and we'll see what we can do within the
I'm on
law.
the corner, there, I deal with it every time, when I
Yeah.
pull out, and they're like, it's the Autobahn. I almost got hit the other night by, I don't wanna see who it was. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm screaming. It was on videotape, I don't worry about it, I got it all covered. You can see my own death on my videotape. I'll deal with
Yes,
it.
okay, Ms.
To finish my question, if you need a traffic study to put up a stop sign or a speed limit sign, you need a traffic study to make streets one way.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that. In terms, regardless of whether the state says it or not, to make such a major change, we would bring in outside engineers.
Yeah.
We just want to gauge.
The flashing lights.
Yeah, well, we're not gonna make the investment until we came and talked to you folks about the different options. Now we're gonna go back among the staff, go back to the regional planning agency, the transportation folks, and say, okay, here are some of the issues, we've narrowed some things down, here are some of the things that we think we can do. You know, there's low, medium, and high as far as, processes that you have to go through.
30 miles an hour is too fast to go.
And I hear you, and I hear everyone on that one, and I've got that written down, and we're gonna see what we can do.
Traffic study, one way or another, is what we probably
Well,
would
we
be
can't-
looking at.
We can't
right?
commit to that
To
because,
find out what is the best thing for our town to do for the safety of our residents, for the businesses, be it truck drivers, little restaurants, whatever. There's gonna end up being a traffic study done to find out what would be the most beneficial way to go about doing this. Am I right about this?
I think as we can go down the path, yes, and ultimately, if the funding is available, we can do a traffic
Right.
study
Okay,
in order to
so
implement
maybe
something.
turns into a one-way, can we get a 20-mile-an-hour speed zone sign at the same time? Is that a difference?
There's been a lot of
Say
studies.
No, it would-
Traffic studies look at options and then recommendations, so
That's what
they
I
look
know.
at the whole scope of things,
Yeah.
from parking to traffic,
So,
stop signs and speed.
It's inevitable that if we wanna do something, we're gonna have traffic.
but once we get to a certain point that we've narrowed down what we think we wanna look at doing, then I'll have to work with, Mark and Public Works to secure the funding necessary to, get the detailed traffic study necessary to implement it. Right now, we're doing things, we're looking at, taking in public comment, looking at the different options, working with our regional planning agency. We're doing everything we can, within our available resources to narrow the scope of what we're gonna look at. So,
Isn't there a time frame that somebody can park on the street? You've got fishermen parking there for 12 minutes.
we're gonna look into, I'm gonna look into that.
That's an
That's
issue.
ridiculous.
That's what I wanted
Not
to say,
long-term parking.
when he said about parking. In New Bedford, near me and Ed's restaurant and down near East Beach, they have all these signs posted, resident parking only. Everything else will be towed. They have the same signs in Onset, resident parking only. If you park there and go to their beach, your car will be towed. So, but the only drawback in our little community is we have so many tenements or
Those would be residents.
Right, but you also have businesses.
Yeah.
So if you limit it to just the tenants, then the businesses don't have parking spots either.
Yeah, well,
So
I would
that's
never
what's
consider
wrong.
resident-only
That's
parking
what-
along Main
they
Street.
don't. Not all of them do. Seawitch doesn't, Upper Nichols doesn't,
Yeah.
Euro has a little bit, but there's a lot of businesses on that street that do not have parking. So if you do put something like they have in New Bedford or Onset, then it's for the residents, and then the businesses don't have parking.
Oh, and we wouldn't look at doing that either. Yeah. Yes, sir, in the back.
A block, I mean, you can walk a block to go to a business.
Yeah.
I can, but somebody with a disability cannot.
They-
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
There's a lot of free parking in this town.
Do we have disability spots downtown?
Not a lot of them.
Oh, I guess I should take.
Yes, sir.
I'd be very careful of what you're asking for. All this, the input that you put in now will definitely change the horizon and the appearance of Fairhaven. Now, I drive in and out of Boston all the time. They got they got the streets there. This looks like a major highway compared to the streets they got there. They have bicyclists going through 1,000 miles an hour, and they make it work. They also have parking meters everywhere. Do you want parking meters? Do you want stripes on your streets all the way up and down? I mean, these things that you're suggesting is gonna change the whole scope of your small town, your village that you're talking about. Well, it's changed, but it's gonna change more if you continue to do that. Now, the other thing is, one suggestion that I heard you say, we have a new influx of clam boats that have come to New Bedford, okay? They're down at Lindbergh's. Across the street is where they park all the tractor trailers, and they pick them up. There's probably 3 or 4 per boat that pick up these cages and come in and out of New Jersey. They're coming up and down Middle Street. Those guys go a little excessive speed. I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but that's what happens. You say you can't get around down there. One of the suggestions you said was come down Green Street and take Union, because that's where a truck can make those corners around those things. But you're gonna have trucks coming down Green Street now.
Oh, I know.
So-
There's no easy solution.
But, you know, and the thing that I honestly, I mean, you go by the police station, you have one sign that says 25 miles per hour. That's the only sign that I see in Fairhaven that says it's posted. If you have the ability to post it at 30, if it was at 30, everybody'd be smiling right now. They're going 40, 50 miles an hour down here. So you have the ability to at least put those in right now without anybody making any judgments or traffic things. You could put these signs in every couple of blocks, 30 miles an hour, strictly enforced. I mean,
I don't know if you can do that.
I'm just saying, that's what I thought, that,
I'm saying, if it's not posted, it's automatically 30, but if you post it, it's now saying you posted it as, even though it's the right speed limit, it wouldn't be wrong. I'm not saying it can't be done, you're right. But I'm just saying, like, again, legally, what you can put on a sign that hasn't been, and an accepted speed on that street. Because unposted is what it means, unposted.
But you can still enforce it, there.
Oh, yeah, you can still enforce it.
Right. So I think from everything we hear here is that, you know, I think the one way is great, but the issue is the speed, and if you make it one way, it may increase the speed. Now, so the issue I think is, and you know, we've all lost mirrors and sideswipes, and this would help. But if we don't enforce the 30 mile an hour, then it's all.
I think it's all lasting else. This isn't just to your area. This is a complaint I have, no matter what part of town. I can go to the end of First Street at the beach there, and that one house is on my own, people go fly. You know what I'm saying? So when you say just enforce it, I don't think we have to research. I mean, if everybody wants to come to town meeting and let Mr. Reese know I need about 20 more guys. Hey, I'm for it. You know what I'm saying? I understand what you're saying, but I hear what you guys are saying. We don't have the manpower for the entire town. We hit spots at times. We went out east when they repaved the thing out there. We were out there for a good 2 weeks. Yes, it slowed it down. You know, that was a concerted effort. I spent extra money. I can't do that throughout the whole year. Of course, we haven't been there since. And it goes back out east. It's back the way it was. You know what I'm saying? So I can move around, but I could never.
Do the tickets pay for the? No.
No, nothing
You
comes
can't
back.
link them.
Nothing.
No, that goes to the state.
Oh.
State gets
Majority
it.
goes to the
State
state, I
gets it
believe some
again.
comes back in chapter 90 for roads, correct? Is that what it goes?
Yeah,
Like
it-
25% may come back to the town. for those-
money goes into the state, and then they divvy it up back to Chapter 90 money, which is money that Public Works gets for roads.
So you don't benefit the way you think.
But maybe if we had a sign posted at each end of Main and Middle, some people don't know the speed limit. She thought it was 20, I thought it was 25. Some people just don't know what the speed limit. Granted, we're older, I haven't had drivers in 50-some years, but, you know, maybe we need a
We're not teaching
reminder.
the kids it anyway, so.
Maybe we need a reminder, you know? Not saying post it on every street, but maybe like at Route 6 and at the Ferry Street or South Street, at the beginning and the end of Main and Middle.
I have it on my list to look at. So,
I just wanted to make a comment about, there was some new legislation passed this year in 2016 about speed limits.
Correct.
This is something that I know you're familiar, Billy, with Bonnie D'Souza from Mattapoisett. She's a bicycling advocate, and they were looking at this specifically for the bike path crossing on at Brant Island Road. So there's a bit of a blind spot there,
and they go through there pretty fast.
Traffic comes through fast, and so they were looking at what could be done with this. She recommended contacting Representative Strauss, but there was some, she referred to a link to the Mass Department of Transportation link, and there's a frequently asked questions page on there, which I recommend anybody here to look at, because it's very simple to read through. But there's one question 6, it says, how does the new speed limit legislation passed in 2016 affect my town? And it says that it allows a municipality to opt in through this Mass General Chapter 90 law, thereby reducing statutory speed limits from 30 to 25 on any or all city town-owned roadways within a thickly settled business district. And then it goes on, but you must notify the Mass DOT of the changes. Then there's a second paragraph right below it that says you can go to 20, but you have to do the speed study. So it sounds like it may be, with this new law, it may be some authority to do that, at least down 5 miles an hour, lower and you know.
We'll look into all of those things. Traffic signs are the cheapest thing.
Yeah.
So, and it's about 8 o'clock. Now, I want to know, did everyone get the card that's here? Okay, great.
Don't hesitate to contact us for phone calls or emails.
Yes.
As we continue this has been very helpful for us, as Phil mentioned, we got some ideas we hadn't thought about before. So let's keep on working together as we try to address this quality life issues. Thank you very much for coming.
Yes,